Hey everybody, welcome to the Devo with Bo-O, March 3rd, 2023. Nice chilly morning out here in the desert for sure, man. It is brisk. And get your coat and get your beanie if you're going to go outside. It is just one of those chill days. It's the day after it snowed, so hey, go figure. Nice and chilly. So we're in our passage we're in is 1 Kings chapter 16. It's right there. And you can check out the devotions, all the archives at my YouTube channel, Beau Willette. And I just have them there at a playlist by book of the Bible. So it's so interesting just going through the Bible. So many questions are answered if we just read the Bible, just go through it, just have a love, a desire for the scriptures. And many people criticize the Bible like I did, just totally criticize, bash it, and but you don't read it. You don't actually look into it at all. And if you do read it, it's like super brief. You're not really even into it. You're just kind of trying to find some caveat that you could use. I know I was like that, so you can kind of keep doing what you're doing. And, sometimes, that just ain't working when we do it that way. So it's best just to take some time and read through it, and you might find something super awesome. So we're dealing with the kings of Israel. It's kind of neat. We're going through the northern kingdom and their different kings that they have in the southern kingdoms. We saw that there was kind of one good king. I thought, what was it? Asa, that wasn't bad, he was one of the kings in the south, right? In Judah, big one. We always want to think about Judah, and then there was different kings that reigned in the north, but they just kept kind of doing what they were doing. There was no kind of spiritual restoration going on. There was just like a continuation of the same old jargon, and isn't it nice when we do have kind of a spiritual revival, something that revives us, gets us back on track, and we don't just kind of keep going away, that kind of thing. So it continues and it says, "This message from the Lord was delivered to King Baasha by the prophet Jehu, son of Hanani. I lifted you out of the dust to make you ruler of my people Israel." Kind of true, right? From dust we are, from dust we go. And it says, "But you have followed an evil example of Jeroboam." So this is talking about those from the north, kings of the north. And it's kind of a critique on Baasha, right? Hey, I lifted you up, but man, look at what you did. Ooh, that's always kind of a rough one, right? Hey, I lifted you up, but look at where you're at. Look at what you did. Look at what you're doing. Were you appreciative? No, you just were prideful. You were just boastful. You were just, got super narcissistic. You did things your way. You didn't even think about me. It says, "So now I will destroy you and your family, just as I destroyed the descendants of Jeroboam, son of Nebat." Now, always remember that we read early on in the Bible that Israel is whose? Yahweh's. That's right. They were bought with a price. That's right. And they had a whole Passover Seder. They had a whole situation where they were delivered from the land of Egypt. And every human Israelite was the Lord's. And so everybody, all the kings are accountable to who? To God, right? To Yahweh, for their treatment of the people. And God is saying, hey, my ways are going to help them the best. It's going to draw them close to me. But these kings, like Baasha, just said no to God. Said, no, we're not going to go Yahweh's route. We're going to go the other God's route. And God says, no, you're accountable to me. Israel is my people. They are my precious possession. It says that all the way back in Exodus. And so just to remind you, that this is why God was holding these kings accountable. And it says, so now I will destroy you and your family, just as I destroyed the descendants of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. The members of Baasha's family who die in the city will be eaten by dogs, and those who die in the field will be eaten by vultures. The rest of the events of Baasha's reign and the extent of his power are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Baasha died, he was buried in Tirzah. Then his son Elah became the next king. Okay, so we got another king now, right? This guy, Elah. I said Elah. The message from the Lord against Baasha and his family came through the prophet Jehu, son of Hanani. It was delivered because Baasha had done what was evil in the sight of the Lord, just as his family Jeroboam had done. And also because Baasha had destroyed the family of Jeroboam, the Lord's anger was provoked by Baasha's sins. Wow. Okay. So there it kind of gives an explanation to everything that's going on, right? Accountability, consequences, right? Pretty intense. Yeah. Accountability. That's a rough thing, right? You know, how accountable do you want to be? How accountable do I want to be? Now, the Bible does have these amazing statements that I think of this morning when it comes to accountability, that everything is naked before the Lord. And isn't that so true? Everything is naked before God. In a sense, we're all accountable to the Lord, right? He is the creator. We all have an accounting. You know, where are we at? You know, how are we with our heavenly parent, so to speak? Or are we that just rebellious teen still, you know? Yeah, is my heart okay with accountability? That's a good one to think about in this, you know, this chilly day. Now, Elah, son of Baasha, began to rule over Israel, north, okay, in the 26th year of the reign of Asa's reign in Judah. He reigned in the city of Tirzah for 2 years. Then Zimri, who commanded half of the royal chariots, made plans to kill him. Another assassination gonna happen. It's like a movie, you know? It's just a constant, you know, here we go again, you know? And so Elah was getting drunk at the home of Arza, the supervisor of the palace. So Elah hangs with his crew. He's hanging out with his buddies. You know, they're sipping some back. It sounds like they're sipping more than a few back, right? It sounds like they're really hammering away, man. They got the 12-pack going, each of them, right? And it says Zimri walked in and struck him down and killed him. Man, this guy, you know, obviously, you know, put himself in a pretty compromising situation, right? You know, things probably weren't good in the kingdom. You know, he had some enemies going on, but you know what? He kind of didn't think much about it. And instead, you know, he goes out and parties with his crew. And you know what? You know, he's vulnerable and boom, right? He gets it. Wow. You know, it's funny, but you know, you think that Elah would know this, because this is kind of how, you know, other people in that kingly line became king, was through assassination. And so you think that, man, like, you would know that kind of assassination's kind of the way people become king. You know, this is kind of how it's rolling, it seems. So it seems like it would tip you off a little bit, you know, to be pretty cautious. You know, maybe have a couple beers and then call it a night. You know, maybe not the best, you know, to get tanked. And so this happened in the 27th year of King Asa's reign in Judah. Then Zimri became the next king. So there you go, right? So, hey, Baasha, we saw that Baasha did the same thing, plotted against Nadab and assassinated him. And we see that now Zimri made plans to kill Elah. And so and it's just interesting, right? Elah was the son of Baasha. So you can see, here we go. It's going, it's happening. You kind of like reap what you sow. Woo, that's a big statement, right? You reap what you sow, and man, there was a lot of reaping of violence, and now you see a real harvesting, the fruit of all that violence, that assassination, right? Putting your power over people. That's what we do. A lot of philosophers, Nietzsche, was a big one, Friedrich Nietzsche, that were very big into that concept. It's funny how people are into Nietzsche today. They're like, Nietzsche said God is dead. It's awesome. But I'm just like, whoa, bro, like, do you know what Nietzsche was into? Power of your will over people. Hey, you got will, you got power, use it. Use your power, conquer, Yeah, sounds very selfish and narcissistic. Does that sound like our culture a little bit? I don't know. You guys can comment on that. So, Laura says we too are bought with the shed blood of Christ for the remission of sins. Yes, so true. Amen to that. Paula says she's thankful for the archives. Hey, they're there. And so it says Zimri immediately killed the entire royal family of Baasha, leaving him not a single male child. So we see the fulfillment of that, if you will, that curse on the family. He even destroyed distant relatives and friends. And so Zimri destroyed the dynasty of Baasha as the Lord had promised through the prophet Jehu. So it's neat. Another prophet is sent. And isn't that cool? We're going to continue to see this theme just coming up and up and up in these books. And that is this idea that God sends a messenger. God sends a messenger. And again, when you look through the Bible, you'll see books like Isaiah and Ezekiel and Daniel and Habakkuk and Amos, and it goes down the list, right? And you got to remember, a lot of those people are being sent to these kings, and their work in God is actually during different times of the kings that we're going over. And so that might help you kind of go, oh yeah, I see what God's doing is God's sending prophets. He's sending spokespeople for God to the government. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, to the kings. And saying, hey, this is a reminder, man. This isn't your kingdom. It's God's. That's what continues to happen. So this happened because of all the sins of Baasha and his son Elah had committed, and because of the sins they led Israel to commit. They provoked the Lord to anger the God of Israel with their worthless idols. So they didn't just do idol worship themselves. They actually led Israel, the northern kingdoms, into idolatry. And so, we got to be careful with what we allow, right? We don't want to lead people into idolatrous stuff. And so it's important that we kind of think through kind of what we allow in our own lives, and so that we don't move other people into dangerous situations, that lead them away from God, right? And that's something I always think about. I'm not the best at all the time. I'm a pretty free bird with, in the sense that I love to listen to all kinds of music and and it's not that that's necessarily bad, but I think I can be more careful in those areas. And that's just a personal reflection during, the devotion. And that's what devotions are about, is kind of looking at ourselves. It says, the rest of the events in Elah's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. Okay. So, hey, Zimri began to rule over Israel in the 27th year of King Asa's reign in Judah. But his reign in Tirzah lasted only 7 days. The army of Israel was then attacking the Philistines' town of Gibbethon when they heard that Zimri had committed treason and had assassinated the king. that very day, they chose Omri, commander of the army, as the new king of Israel. So Omri led the entire army of Israel up from Gibbethon to attack Tisra, Israel's capital. Then Zimri saw that the city had been taken. He went to the citadel of the palace and burned it down over himself and died in the flames. Yikes, what a tragic situation. For he too had done what was evil in the Lord's sight. He followed the example of Jeroboam and all of his sins he had committed, and led Israel to commit adultery. The rest of the events of Zimri's reign are in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. So here we go again, right? Another king of the north just not doing the right thing. So we get this idea this morning of just repetitive stuff, repetitive things, right? Just continuing down these chains, this chain of kings, right? And who's going to break the chain, right? Who's going to break the link? Think of your family, right? Like, how is that consistent alcoholism going to get broke, right? How's that, that kind of thing? We have those things in our family lines. All of us do. And so we see that going on here. It says, but now the people of Israel were split into two factions. Half of the people tried to make Tibni, son of Ginath, their king, while the other half supported Omri. But Omri's supporters defeated the supporters of Tibni, so Tibni was killed, and Omri became the next king. So now the northern kingdom has like a battle within itself. They're going at it, Isn't that funny? How, the northern kingdom goes against God, right? They go their own way. It's like our culture, right? You just go your own way. Do your own thing, man. Do what's good for you, bro. Don't worry about it. You do you, I do me, blah, 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 blah. But then within even that own culture of, quote, this liberation is what? Just a bunch of bickering, a bunch of arguing. Isn't that amazing? If they're so liberated, if everybody's so free and so open, then why can't everybody just get along and work as a unit? Because even within that culture, even with that your liberation philosophy, right? You just can't seem to pull it together, because your guys' foundation, everybody's foundation is on the wrong authority. It's not on the Lord. It's not on his authority, but it's on some other authority. Someone's trusting that government. Someone's trusting that organization. Someone's trusting that person over there. Someone thinks this is the right person. Everybody's looking at some other authority instead of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, right? That's it. And Jesus said, "Come to me, all who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." This is Jesus's challenge. Who do you say that I am? And this is what Jesus asked. Who do you say that I am? Is he the ultimate authority? Jesus is trying to get us to understand that. Is that if Jesus is God, then he is to be listened to. But if he's just some great, kind of spokesperson, well, there's many spokespersons. There's many people that speak for someone. There's many great philosophers, great teachers, right? Great minds, But Jesus is saying, no, you have to come to me. Everybody, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus makes it super clear that you have to go to Jesus. He is the ultimate authority. But all the kings are going to their own philosophies, their own, crews, their own thoughts on government, whatever it is. And it just divides. It just continues to divide until a nation comes under the proper authority. Then all it's going to do is divide. And we just can't seem to do that. We can't seem to come underneath the proper authority, right? Any authority we come under is on this earth, any authority we come under is corrupted, just like we are, right? And that's really rough. And that it can be sad to think about that. But this is why the blessed hope is Jesus' second coming. So Omri began to rule over Israel in the 31st year of King Asa's reign in Judah. He reigned 12 years in all, 6 of them in Tisra. Then Omri brought the hill now known as Samaria from its owner. He bought it, Shemer, for 150 pounds of silver. He built a city on it in Samaria and called the city Samaria in honor of Shemer. But Omri did what was evil in the Lord's sight, even more than any of the kings before him. What? We thought things were pretty bad already, right? But it just continues to get gnarlier. And so he followed the example of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and all the sins he had committed. Now, this poor guy Jeroboam, he's mentioned in the Bible all the time here, but it's always in that negative way, He followed Jeroboam, right? And what did Jeroboam do? He's the one who constructed, remember those different places of worship in the northern kingdoms of Israel? Instead of people going to Jerusalem to worship at the temple, right, where the Ark of the Covenant was, the place of meeting, the Ark of meeting, right, the place where God said his name would be established. Instead, what did Jeroboam do? He set up his own shop. He set up golden calf worship again. He said, hey, we're going to worship here. We're going to worship there. So you guys don't have to go down to Judah, because it's a long travel. Going to church 15, 20 miles, that is so long. That's a long, long distance. Golly, that's so long, I'm being totally facetious, but, some people are like that. They're like, man, I'd go to church, but it's like 15 miles, and I'm like, what? Like, that blows my brain, especially because you live in a nice area of town. You got a nice house, you got a nice car, you obviously have some money. I think you can put in $30 in your tank and get down to worship. Not a good excuse, not a good one, not one that I am very prone to agree with at all, if you can tell. It's one thing if you're riding a bicycle and you're like, man, it's tough to get to church. Get it. If you're taking a bus, there's people that take buses to church, totally get it, But when you're living in the prime spots, in the town, you're like, yo, I'm hanging in Bel Air, but, it's really tough for me to get to church, because it is 30 miles away. Wow. Not good. Not good at all. But this is what the northern tribe was doing. This is how they were thinking. Is like, what? We don't want our people to be under that king and under that rulership, so we'll just make church a little closer, and so we don't have to go down there. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Bummer. That happens that way. We gotta think through that a little bit, and so see where our hearts lie. And so it says the rest of the events of Omri are, guess where they're at. Guess where the rest of the things of Omri are at? All the events, they're in the book of the history of the kings. That's right. And Omri died, and he was buried in Samaria, that wonderful city he built, right? Then his son Ahab became the next king. So Omri did worse than any king before him. He was not a cool person. Built Samaria and probably led it into idol worship, right? And now Ahab. Has anybody heard of Ahab? So Ahab, son of Omri, began to rule over Israel north in the 38th year of King Asa's reign in Judah. So, giving us some details. He reigned in Samaria, where Omri built that city, 22 years. But Ahab's son of Omri did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, even more than any of the kings before him. Wow, this is like a theme. I mean, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Is this how human history is? We think we're getting better and better and better, but we don't know anything. We say global warming. It's freezing all the time. We say this. It's really that. We say this is going on. It's not that. Are we just like totally gone? Is our minds just exploded? Are we just that off? I would say the answer is probably yeah. And that's why we need a Savior. We need saving. Not a little bit. Not a little bit. But we need it. All of it. A ton. Right? Oh man, God help us. Thank you, Jesus, for his mercy, his love for us, right? Oh my gosh, he's faithful to us. Isn't that beautiful? And it says, because we just keep going down. I don't want to separate these people from me. I'm part of the human problem, I'm right there with them. You just keep going down the wrong road. You keep getting worse, right? You're not even trying to do the right thing anymore. You just keep going down. You're following the blind, leading the blind, as Jesus said. Will not both fall into a ditch? And as though, in verse 31, as though it were not enough to follow the example of Jeroboam, he married Jezebel, the daughter of King Ethbaal of the Sidonians. Now, does that sound pretty rough? Your pop's named after Baal? Isn't that like a pagan god? And it's like, isn't it the pagan god, Baal? And so what does he do? He says, I'm going to go marry that girl over there, of the Sidonians. Israel? I'm not marrying anybody in Israel. No way. I'm taking for myself someone who's really into, some worshiping of some idols. And so first Ahab built a temple and an altar for Baal in Samaria. Go figure, right? That's where Pop set up shop, his dad. And it says, then he set up an Asherah pole. Interesting. Baal, power, the god of power, Asherah, a little fertility, we kind of have our worship. We're bowing down to worshiping a goddess of fertility. It says he did more to provoke the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, than any of the other kings of Israel before him. And it was during his reign that Hiel, a man from Bethel, rebuilt Jericho. Interesting. Okay, so Jericho's on the scene. We haven't heard from Jericho in quite a while, actually, right? Last time we heard of Jericho, Israel was coming out of Egypt and going into the wilderness, wandering, and they were going into the promised land. And it says, when he laid its foundations, it cost him the life of his oldest son, Abiram. And when he completed it and set up its gates, it cost him the life of his youngest son, Segub. This all happened according to the message of the Lord concerning Jericho spoken by Joshua, son of Nun. Wow. So an interesting, maybe what I'm going to have to do is go back into Joshua and find out what exactly this was about. I'm sure there was something that was told to Joshua, and here is a fulfillment of that. That's usually how it goes. So there's these little areas that tell us about some fulfilling prophecies that have been already spoken. So very interesting details, and I love that about these sections. Super detailed, man. Again, if you just pick this up, the Bible, and you just went to 1 Kings chapter 16 and you read this, you're going to be like, what are we talking about, right? Do you see how you need to go through the Bible? Yeah. So Ahab, oh man, Ahab, he just is going down the wrong path, right? Really knee deep, and like Solomon too, marries a woman who's very knee deep into idol worship as well. And Ahab becomes very famous for his rebellion against God in the scriptures. So what an amazing chapter. Once again, so many good things for us to think about. That wonderful accountability we have before God, bringing again our lives before God, having him search our hearts too, seeing those repetitive patterns in our own life, maybe from our generations, our descendants, our culture, whatever it is, trying to break those things by looking to the right authority, looking to Jesus, right? And that's what we're doing. And so I love these chapters. So cool. And it's so interesting to read about these different people, and it all kind of comes to a wonderful conclusion with Jesus. And how Jesus goes to these people will all have kids, and then Jesus will be on the scene, and Jesus will be ministering to their families. And are they going to reject Jesus, the Savior, or are they going to love Jesus? What are they going to do? Woo! Jesus goes to the northern parts of Israel. He goes to the southern parts of Israel. I hope you see that now. We're talking about the northern kingdoms, the southern kingdoms, the problems with them. Well, Jesus is going to come on the scene and go to them. Wow. Very cool. Do they deserve it? No. But God is merciful. Yeah. So very cool. Hey, you guys have a great one. Have a great weekend, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.